Happy evening, all of you all.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening,
Sir.
Okay. So welcome to the first session of R2C. So what we'll do is you all have learned all the chapters of the syllabus. I've done it quite much in detail, the Indian Contract Act and the Sale of Goods Act. Today we will go through the case laws. Chinmay has sent the case laws to you. Chandana or Ilakya, who's there now?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Is
Yes,
Ilakya
sir.
there?
Revision material they shared in group, sir.
A revision material, huh?
Yes, sir. They've shared it as revision material.
Okay, just see what is the revision. If you can share the screen. I thought I'll do the case laws and tell you all, because I remember out of 60 marks, nearly 20-25 marks comes from the case laws, right? So let's go into that. Is there a, would I give you the question papers or something like that? No.
Yes, sir. Question paper questions.
Uh-huh. Who's going to read?
I'm going to read, sir.
Who? Ilakya, you're there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just read out what are they given the question papers. Do you all know the format of the paper?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what's the format.
Sir, there will be 6 questions and we have to answer in 5 of them.
And each
12,
question carries
Each carries, I think, 12, sir.
12 marks. Very good. You have to attempt only 5 out of
5 out of 6, sir.
5 out of
First question is compulsory, sir.
First question is
compulsory.
First question is compulsory, and that generally consists of Contract Act, Sale of Goods Act, and Companies Act.
Yes,
Out
sir.
of the remaining 5 questions, you have to answer any 4 questions, again of 12 marks each, and there'll be 4 marks, 3 marks, 2 marks. Out of each of these 5 questions, there'll be at least one case law in each of these. Correct or no? So very rarely you will have one question where there is no case law. So if you are not interested in doing a case study, or you are finding that you are very poor in understanding the cases, then try, and you'll anyway have to attempt at least 3 with case studies. Only one you can, I think so, might be very rarely one question will be there without a case study. Then you can attempt that, because if you are good at theory and memorizing questions. Out of that marks which you have, remember there are 12 into 6, you'll have 72 marks. I told you around 36 to 40 marks comes from Indian Contract Act and Sale of Goods Act. Usually only one question comes for 5 marks from Limited Liability Partnership in all the papers. If you all have seen it, have you seen that? Usually in the second question, you will have only one question of limited. The remaining 27 marks will come from Companies Act and Partnership Act. So remember, 6 questions, you have to answer any 5. Question 1 is compulsory. Question 2 to 6, you have to attempt any 5. What you have to attempt any?
5.
5. And in each of these questions, there will be one case study. So the questions will be either 444 or 642 or 3432, like that. It will total up to 12 marks. What it will total up to?
12 marks.
So sometimes if you are feeling that you are weak in case studies, pick up those questions in which the case study marks are less. If it's only 3 marks, only 2 marks, in case, I'm just telling you, most of you are good. And I've already told you how to handle a case study. Remember, I told you you have to solve the case study in 4 various aspects. What are the 4 aspects you have to take into consideration? I told you whenever you get a case, you have to first write facts of the case. Second, you have to write provisions of the act. Third, you have to write analysis. Fourth, you have to write conclusion. What you have to write? Conclusion. So you'll write facts of the case. This is the fact. In 2 lines, you'll write what are the facts of the case. You'll write the provision, which section is affecting this case, or which act is affecting this case, on what topic is this case. Is it on consideration? Is it on free consent? Is it on rights of unpaid seller? Third will be analysis. You will analyze the case and you'll give and the last one will be conclusion. What is the verdict you are giving? Understand or no? Facts, provisions, analysis, conclusion. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead and
Yes, sir.
okay.
Unit 1, Nature of Contract, July 2021. State with reasons whether the following agreements are valid or void. First one, a clause in a contract provided that no action should be brought up in case of breach. Where 2 courts have jurisdiction to try a suit, an agreement between the parties that the suit should be filed in one of those courts alone and not in the other. Third, X offers to sell his Maruti car to Y. Y believes that X has only Wagner car, but but agrees to buy it. X, a physician and surgeon.
What is it? What I'm not understanding the question only. Read from the beginning.
Sir, shall I read first question and then the answer, then later the second question?
Yeah, like that only it will be better.
Yes, sir. State with reasons whether the following agreements are valid or void. A
Valid or
clause-
void. Okay, so remember, whenever you're reading the question, if you're not understanding it, read it at least twice. So you have to say whether the agreement is valid or void. Okay, now the first point is, read the first question.
A clause in a contract provided that no action should be brought upon in case of breach.
Is it possible to have a clause like that in your agreement? No. Remember, we did agreements against public policy, agreements in restraint of law. Did you remember that? Agreements in restraint of law are null and
Void.
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 remember that? We did an agreements of public policy, correct? So read the answer.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
The given agreement is void. Reasons, as per Section 28 of Indian Contract Act 1872, this clause is in restraint of legal proceedings
Agreements in restraint of legal proceedings.
because it restricts both the parties from enforcing their legal rights.
So
Note-
this is a void agreement. You all understood this? Yes or no? Okay. Read the second point.
Okay, sir. Where 2
And this was
courts,
section 28. All agreements opposed to public policy, they are given in different sections in the chapter. Remember which chapter is this?
Yes, sir. Indian Contract Act.
Indian Contract Act, the 3rd chapter. What it is the? Not 3rd, 4th chapter, right? Yeah. Okay. Next.
where
4th
two
unit.
Yes, sir. Where 2
Where-
courts have jurisdiction to try a suit, an agreement between the parties that the suit should be filed in one of those courts alone and not in the other.
This is valid. What do you mean by this court? Now, let's say I'm entering into contract with Ilakya. She's in Tamil Nadu, I'm in Karnataka. But I told, in case there's a dispute, we will only go to Bangalore High Court. We will not go to Chennai High Court. Is this a valid contract? Yes, it is a valid. Read.
The given agreement is valid. Reason: an agreement is restraint of legal proceeding is the one by which any party thereto is restricted absolutely from enforcing his rights under a contract through a court. A contract of this nature is void. However, in the given statement, no absolute restriction is marked on parties on filing of suit. As per the agreement, suit may be filed in one of the courts having jurisdiction.
So in case, see how they've written the answer. So if this is not an agreement in restraint of legal proceedings, because this is an agreement where you can file a case. The only restraint is in which court you have to file the case, right? Third one.
X offers to sell his Maruti car to Y. Y believes that X has only Wagoner car, but R agrees to buy it.
But R.
Not R, sir. X offers to sell his Maruti car. Y believes that X has only Wagoner car, but agrees to buy it. Shall I read the answer, sir?
No, read the answer. See, when X agrees to sell his Maruti car, so he might be having 2-3 cars, right? Y thought that he has only Wagoner car. This is a mistake. Go ahead. Read.
Yes, sir. The said agreement is void. Reason: this agreement is void as the two parties are thinking about different
Different things. There's no consensus added in. Remember, I told you bilateral mistake.
Yes, sir.
Correct. I am thinking of selling my white horse. You are thinking of buying my black horse. I've given you this example so many times. Why I got confused is because Wagoner is also Maruti only. Correct only.
Yes.
They should have mentioned Honda car and Wagoner car or something. That it would have made more sense. Correct or no? But X is thinking of selling one car, and Y is thinking that he wants to sell another car. So there is no consensus added in. There is a bilateral. Which section is bilateral mistake, Madhumita? Section 20, 21 and 22. What section 20, 21 and? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Huh? So you'll have to write as per section 20, 21 and 22, bilateral mistakes are null and void. Understood? Even if you don't know the section, don't bluff. But if you know the section, it's better to write it. Got it? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are thinking about different subject matters so that there is no real consent and the agreement may be treated as void because of mistake of fact as well as absence of consent.
Yeah.
Fourth one, X, a physician and surgeon, employs Y, an assistant on a salary of rupees 75,000.
This is the next question. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, read it.
X, a physician and surgeon, employs Y as an assistant on a salary of rupees 75,000 per month for a term of 2 years, and Y agrees not to practice as a surgeon and physician during these 2 years.
It's a valid contract. Remember, this is an exception to the agreements in restraint of trade. Correct? So in case you're appointing an intern or you're appointing somebody, you can enter into an agreement in restraint of. Again, this is agreements opposed to public. Remember, I did the agreements in a restraint of trade. Yes or no? There were certain exceptions, no partners, this, that, and all that, right? Read the answer.
Yes, sir.
Just hold on, just hold on, just hold on. Okay, sorry guys. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. So I told you there were certain exceptions to the agreements in restraint of trade. Do you all remember that? Agreements in restraint of trade. Madhav versus Rajkumar, we had done some cases also, but this is an exception. So this is a valid agreement. You can read.
Yes, sir. The said agreement is valid. Reason: an agreement by which any person is restrained from exercising a lawful profession, trade, or business of any kind is that extent void. But as an exception, agreement of service by which an employee binds himself during the term of his agreement not to compare with his employer is not in restraint of trade.
So this is not in restraint because it's an exception to the agreements in restraint of trade. Okay. How many marks was this? They gave anything?
This was
4 marks or 6 marks, whatever. Okay. Next one.
mentioned, sir.
Oh, and there should be at least 6 marks. Four. How many? They give you 4 points, right?
Yes, sir, 4 points.
No. So at least 1.5 marks. Oh. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. January 2021 defined the term acceptance under the Indian Contract Act 1872. Explain the legal rules regarding a valid acceptance.
This I'm not doing with you all. This is a theory question. You all know how to do this, right? You all know what is acceptance, what are the legal rules for acceptance. Didn't we do this when we were doing the Indian Contract Act? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So this you can study on your own. Just read the main headings, Ilakya, for the answer for that. What are the agreements in, or we can skip it also, not an issue. Right?
Okay, sir.
Mm.
A second question. Mr. S, aged 58 years, was employed in a government department. He was going to retire after 2 years. Mr. D made a proposal to Mr. S to apply for voluntary retirement from his post so that Mr. D can be appointed in his place. Mr. D offered a sum of 10 lakhs as consideration to Mr. S in order to induce him to retire. Mr. S refused at first instance, but when he evaluated the amount offered as consideration is just double of his cumulative remuneration to be received during the tenure of 2 years of employment, he agreed to receive the consideration and accepted the above agreement to receive money to retire from his office. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now remember we had done this case. This was agreement trading with public office or trading with public office, right or no? Again, these are agreements opposed to public office, opposed to public policy. If there is an agreement which trades in public office, so now how do you handle this case? Now remember I told you they will give you an answer, but if you want to create an impression in the mind of the examiner, you will have to put it as facts of the case. Just read the case again, so I'll put it in that proper perspective.
Okay, sir.
Read it again.
Mr. S, aged 58 years, was employed in a government department.
Remember, this is government department is very important. Okay, so when you have to write, remember I told you, you will have to write the answer in 4 parts if this is a case study, right? Facts of the case. Mr. S is a government employee and he has to retire in 2 years' time. He's paid a sum of money of rupees 10 lakhs to resign from service so that the job can be given to Mr. D, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
To be given to Mr. D. That is the facts of the case. Now, is this agreement a valid? So now this is the facts of the case. Now you'll write provisions of the act. You'll write this type of agreement comes under agreements opposed to public policy where there is a trade in public office. What agreements trading in public office and is similar to the agreement. Remember I done a case law with you. What was the case law? Anybody remembers? Same case, exactly the same case. Anybody write? You should write down the cases. Madhumita?
Sir, today she's not able to answer, sir. She's there in the meeting, but there's some problem with the computer.
Who else is there? Who used to write down? Varshini?
Sir, I have not written this part, sir.
It was Muthuswamy versus Swaminathan. So the Swaminathan forced this guy to retire and the agreement was considered. So it's similar to this case. That will write provision. Then you'll write analysis of the case. In the analysis of the case, we can understand that whenever a person trades in a public office where he tries to give a bribe to get a job in a public office or forces a person to retire, such agreements are declared null and void. So you'll write the conclusion. The agreement is null and void, and Mr. D will not be able to recover the money from Mr. S, as it is a agreement opposed to public policy where there is a trading in public offices. What is a trading in public office means government service. Now see the answer in which they've written it. If I were to write the answer, you have to make 4 points: facts of the case, provisions of the act, analysis, conclusion. FPAC. Remember, what is F? Facts. What is P?
Provisions.
What is A?
Analysis.
What is C?
Conclusion.
Conclusion.
Now you read the answer. Read the answer,
Yes.
Lakya.
Whether the above agreement is valid, explain with reference to provision of Indian Contract Act 1872. Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 provides for the legality of consideration and objects thereto. Section 23 of the said act also states that every agreement of which the object or consideration is unlawful is void. The given problem talks about entering into an agreement for traffic relating to public office.
Section
Opposed to public
23.
policy.
Policy.
Public policy requires that there should be no money consideration for the appointment to an office in which the public is interested. Such consideration paid being opposed to public policy is unlawful. In the given case, Mr. S, who is going to be retired after 2 years, was proposed by Mr. D to apply for voluntary retirement from his post in order that he can be appointed in his place. In lieu of the, Mr. D offered Mr. S a sum of rupees 10 lakhs as consideration. Mr. S refused initially.
See, now they put the facts of the case now, but you should have put it in the beginning, right or no? They have also given it in the same way. The only thing is that they have arranged it. Like provisions of the act, they put in section 10 and section 23, right or no? Analysis of the case, they'll analyze it, it's agreement, and then they'll give the conclusion. But you have to arrange it in a proper manner. What you have to arrange it in a proper manner. Yeah.
Mr. D offered a sum of rupees 10 lakhs as consideration. Mr. S refused initially, but later accepted the said offer to receive money to retire from his office. Here, Mr. S's promise of sale, Mr. D and employment in the public service is the consideration for Mr. D's promise to pay of rupees 10 lakh. Therefore, in terms of the above provisions of the Indian Contract Act, the said agreement is not valid. It is void as the consideration being opposed to public policy is unlawful.
Lawful. That's right. Correct. So conclusion, Mr. S cannot enforce the contract because it is null and void. Understood? All of y'all?
Yes, sir.
So remember, agreements opposed to public policy come under section 23. Okay. Section 10 will give you all the essentials of a valid contract. Remember, all the essentials of a valid contract are given under section 10.
Mr. B makes a proposal to Mr. S by post to sell his house for rupees 10 lakhs and posted the letter on 10th April 2020, and the letter reaches to Mr. S on 12th April 2020. He reads the letter on 13th April 2020. Mr. S sends his letter of acceptance on 16th April 2020, and the letter reaches Mr. B on 20th April 2020. On 17th April, Mr. S changed his mind and sends a telegram withdrawing his acceptance. Telegram reaches to Mr. B on 19th April 2020. Examined with reference to Indian Contract Act 1872, on which date the offer made by Mr. B will complete. Discuss the validity of acceptance. What would be validity of acceptance if letter of revocation and letter of acceptance reach together?
Okay, now they've asked you 3 parts to this question. So whenever you have these type of cases or questions, you'll have to read it very carefully. See, one person sent a letter on 10th. When did the letter reach? 12th. So when is the offer completed on behalf of the offerer? On 12th, correct or no? When is the offer completed on behalf of the offeree? When he reads it, that is on 13th. That is the second part. When is the offer complete? So the offer is completed on 2 parts. On behalf of the offerer or the promiser on 12th, and on behalf of the promisee or offeree on the 13th. Correct or no? Now this fellow sent a letter on what, 15th or 17th? What was it?
No, sir. He sends the letter on 10th April, and it reaches on 12th April,
Well, no.
and the party reads it on 13th April,
On
And he
15th
sends-
April.
and he sends his acceptance on 16th April.
16th, 1/6.
Yeah, 1/6.
He sends his acceptance on 16th
Yeah,
April. Okay.
April. And
Now
that
the acceptance on part of the acceptor or the promisee is completed on 16th, and on part of the promiser is completed when it reaches him on 20th. Now, anytime before 20th, the acceptance can be revoked. What the acceptance can be?
revoked.
So since the telegram reached on 19th, before the acceptance was completed, because the acceptance on behalf of the promisee was completed only on 20th. Yes or no? Yes. Therefore,
Yes, sir.
the acceptance can be revoked. What the acceptance can be
Revoked.
revoked. So remember, 12th and 13th are the offer being completed. 20th is the acceptance being completed. But since the acceptance is not completed and before that the revocation is sent, this acceptance can be revoked. What happens if the letters reach on the same day? I already told you that. It depends on which letter is opened first. Which letter is opened?
First.
So if the letter of revocation is opened first and the offerer reads that, the acceptance is revoked. If the acceptance is revocation letter is led second, then the acceptance is not revoked, right?
According to Section 4 of Indian Contract Act 1872, the communication of offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the person to whom it is made. When a proposal is made by post, its communication will be complete when the letter containing the proposal reaches the person to whom it is made. Further, mere receiving of the letter is not sufficient. He must receive or read the message contained in the letter. In the given question, Mr. B makes a proposal by post to Mr. S to sell his house. The letter was posted on 10th April 2020 and the letter reaches to Mr. S on 12th April 2020, but he reads the letter on 13th April 2020.
So offer is completed on 13th, correct or no? Offer should be completed on both on the promiser and the promisee, right or no? So the offer from the promiser was completed on 10th, but on the offeree it was completed on 13th, right? So the final offer is completed on 13th, or the final offer is completed on 13th, right or no? Next.
When communication of acceptance is complete, where a proposal is accepted by a letter sent by the post. In terms of Section 4 of the Act, the communication of acceptance will be complete as against the proposer when the letter of acceptance is posted and as
Posted.
against
So when from the proposer on the 15th, but as against the
acceptor when the letter reaches the proposer.
That's it. Remember, I told you on two parts. It should be on the both of the proposer and the proposee, or the offerer and the offeree, right? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Revocation of acceptance. The acceptor can revoke his acceptance anytime before the letter of acceptance reaches the offerer. If the revocation telegram arrived before or at the same time with the letter of acceptance, the revocation is absolute. In the given question, Mr. S accepts Mr. B's proposal and sends his acceptance by post on 16th April 2020. The communication of acceptance as against Mr. B is complete on 16th April 2020. When the letter is posted as against Mr. S, acceptance will be complete when the only letter reaches Mr. B, that is 28th April 2020, whereas acceptor will be bound by his acceptance only when the letter of acceptance has reached the proposer. The telegram for revocation of acceptance reaches Mr. B on 19th April 2020 before the letter of acceptance of offer 28th April 2020. Hence, the revocation is absolute. Therefore, acceptance to an offer is invalid.
Invalid, correct or not? So it reaches before, right?
Yes.
That's all, again?
No, so there's one more.
No.
It will not make any difference even if the telegram of revocation and letter of acceptance would have reached on the same day. That is, the revocation then also would have been absolute. As per law, acceptance can be revoked anytime before the communication of acceptance is complete. Since revocation was made before the communication of acceptance was complete, and communication can be considered as complete only when the letter of acceptance reaches the proposer, that is Mr. B.
So this last answer they've not written properly. And all the answers, have they written A, B, C, or they've just written one paragraph?
No, they've written as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so you'll have to write it also as 1, 2, 3. The last answer they've not written correctly. You have to write if they reach on the same day and at the same time. Same day, if the revocation letter reaches before the acceptance, then it is revoked. Correct? But if it reaches afterwards,
It is
then the
after.
acceptance is. But if it reaches at the same time, it depends on which letter is
Read first.
read first. Okay, so the third answer is not very correct. See how much they are elongating. You don't have to elongate so much because you won't have that much time. Correct or no? They are just copying and pasting it from the textbook, right? So when they copy and paste from the textbook, they will not mind what they are writing, right or no? All these lines, etc., are just taken from the textbook and copied and
Pasted.
pasted. But you will have to write it in your own words. So I explained it to you clearly, right? How do you have to write the answer? Correct or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
remember this communication of offer and acceptance is section 4. What it is? Section
4.
4. Keep that in mind in the Indian Contract Act. So remember, as you're doing the papers, remember the sections. Correct? 23, 20, 21, 22, I told you is mistake. Section 10 is the essentials of a valid contract. So just keep writing down. I told you already, make a separate notebook where you write all the sections so that it becomes easier for you. But if you don't know the sections, it doesn't mean you have to write it. Just forget about it. Got it or no? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Comment
Right.
on the following statements. Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified.
Yeah.
Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. As per section 7.
Okay, wait, don't have to read this. Remember, that was one essential of a valid acceptance. It should be unconditional and unqualified. I had done 2 cases with you, Neil versus Merit, where he bought a van and he sent the money in installments and it was considered as null and void because the acceptance was conditional. He sent it by installments. Also, one more I had done with you, remember? Hyde versus Wrench. One fellow sent that I want to buy your I want to buy a house for £1,000. Then he said, I'll pay only £900. Then he said, finally £950. Then he said, okay, I'm willing to buy it for £1,000. So whenever you make a qualified acceptance, it amounts to a counter offer. What it amounts to? A
Counter
Counter offer.
and the earlier offer becomes null and void.
void.
So
Void.
offer can be qualified, but acceptance can never be qualified. This is the same in the essentials of valid acceptance. Look at that. Okay, acceptance must be unconditional or unqualified, right? 2 cases. Look at the cases what I've done with you in your class. Hyde versus Wrench. Always write the case. Neil versus Merit. You will get more marks. What you'll get? Why do you think I gave you so many cases? Why do you think I kept on repeating it? For 2 reasons. One, in the answers you can write the cases. Second, the questions which are coming. Just now nobody knew Muthuswamy versus Swaminathan. I'm so shocked. It was such a famous case in agreements opposed to public. And if you would have written in the provisions of the act, that person knows that you know the case at all, right? Right or no? So that's why I told you all when you were doing, write down the case laws, write down the sections when I was explaining only. Otherwise, I was mad to tell you the cases. I wasn't mad. No, I was telling you the cases again and. But it's okay. If you've not written it, don't have to feel guilty now. Just write it down and go as per the provisions of the case. Okay, next.
Yes, sir. Chandana, can you scroll down? Next is acceptance must be in the prescribed mode.
Next time it will be in the prescribed mode, right? It can be in this mode or any other mode. I've told you there is no case law for this, but if there is a mode which has been prescribed, you should do it in that mode. Or even if you do any other reasonable mode, it's okay. But if the offerer again insists that it should be in a prescribed mode, it should be in that mode. Remember, I did that case with you. You cannot send unusual mode like a dog or pigeon or something like that. Remember, I explained it to you all, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But suppose you have insisted on email acceptance should be through WhatsApp and he sends through an email, it's okay. Understand? Right.
Mr. Ramesh promised to pay 50,000 to his wife, Mr. Lilly, so that she can spend the sum on her 30th birthday. Mr. Lilly insisted her.
Mr. Lilly is the wife.
Mrs. Lilly, sorry, sir.
I thought some gay marriages and all you're doing over here. What is Ilakya? Please don't do all this. You're corrupting the entire class. Mr. Ramesh promised to pay his wife,
His wife,
Mr.
Mrs.
Lilly.
Lilly.
And I was thinking, what is happening over here? Correct or no? Dostana.
Yes.
Don't do all this.
Okay, sir.
You'll study all that later on, family law and all, when you become a lawyer and all. Correct or no?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
Mr. Ramesh promised to pay 50,000 to his wife, Mrs. Lily, so that
Mrs. Lily, yeah. You were sounding so silly when you said Mr. Lily. Mr. Lily. Okay.
so
I'll
that
start
she
calling you from today Illy instead of Ilakya. Hello, Miss Lily. Nice name, you know, Illy. Huh?
Yes,
Who
sir.
that? Somebody said, your Mama is there.
No, sir.
Tell him. Okay. Okay. Mr. Ramesh promised his wife, Miss Lily. Miss
Lily.
Lily, whatever.
So that she can spend the sum on her 30th birthday,
Oh.
Mrs. Lily insisted her husband to make a written agreement if he really loved her.
Ooh. What a Lily.
Mr. Ramesh made a written agreement. An agreement was registered under the law. Mr. Ramesh failed to pay the specified amount to his wife, Mrs. Lily. Mrs. Lily wants to file a suit against Mr. Ramesh and recover the promised amount. Referring to the applicable provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, advise whether Mrs. Lily will succeed.
Okay, don't show the answer. She showed the answer already.
He showed the answer already, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Remember, this is a case of.
Balfour versus
Balfour versus Balfour.
Hey, you're all stupid people. Who? Balfour versus Balfour is a social agreement. It is null and void. This is a valid agreement, idiots. This is a some. Remember, I done Venkataswamy versus Ramaswamy, natural love and affection.
Yes, sir.
If an
Yes,
contract
yes,
is
sir.
made out of natural love of affection, it is written, registered, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then the contract is valid. Remember, I told you. So here they mention it is registered, it is written, correct or no? It is made out of natural love and affection. So this is an exception to the rule: no consideration, no contract. What is the exception to the rule? No consideration,
No contract.
So this is a valid agreement. How all of you all went to Balfour versus Balfour? This is Venkataswamy versus Ramaswamy. Remember that brother promised to pay his younger brother?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
it was written, it was registered. So this is everything is that case. This is a valid contract. This is an exception to the law. No consideration, no contract. So Lily will get the money from her husband, Mr. Ramesh. So again, you'll have to write it in the same way. Facts of the case: Mr. Ramesh has promised to pay his wife out of natural love and affection a sum of rupees 30, whatever, some on her 30th birthday. It is written, it is registered. Provisions of the Act. As per the Indian Contract Act, I forgot the section for this no consideration.
25, so
Huh?
section 25.
Section 25, no consideration. This is an exception to the law, natural love and affection, and it is similar to the case of Venkataswamy versus Ramaswamy. Then you'll give provisions of the Act. Even if there is no consideration, no contract, there are certain exceptions. If certain conditions are fulfilled: A, if the contract is of natural love and affection; B, it is written; C, it is registered. Yes or no? Got it? Therefore, Mrs. Lily, conclusion, will be able to succeed in getting the money from her husband. So facts of the case, provisions of the Act, analysis, conclusion. Understood? Now read. Illy. I'm sorry, Lily. Whatever. Illy.
Yes, sir.
Nobody calls you Illy, huh?
No, sir. They started calling Jingalala.
They call it Jingi. No, Jingalala. What? This Illy. Yeah. Jingalala, who is that African guy whom you... Okay, come on.
Yes, sir.
Jingalala, where's Illy? Where's Illy?
It's amazing, sir.
It's amazing, no? And the child will be called Ali. Ali. Jinga Lala and Lala Lily. Okay. Who's telling it's amazing?
Last year, sir.
What last year? You're getting interested, eh?
No, sir.
Last year is also getting very interested in all these African boys. Did I tell you in my college there was this African boy? I told you the story.
No, sir, you did not.
No, sir.
There was this African boy in the previous college where I was teaching, and they came from this, I don't know which part of Africa, Nigeria or something like that. Okay. So his name, they are very rough, tough characters. Okay, very muscular and very, and his name in the attendance register was SIIBOMBA. Did I tell you this? No.
No, sir, you did not say.
Okay, SII. So I was confused. What should his name be? Should it be C Bomba or Sai Bomba? Correct or no? Because SIIBOMBA, right or no? Right. So I called him and I told, can I call you C Bomba or Sai Bomba? Because if I call wrong name, then he'll get angry, right? You know what he told me? Guess. He told me, no, sir, my name is not C Bamba or Sai Bamba. My name is Bamba. He had a whistle in his name. Can you believe it? So every time I have to call him, I have to whistle. Bamba. Imagine your name is like that. SII Ilakya. Ilakya. All eve teasing problems solved in our country. All and next year, there was one more boy. You know what was his name? XIBILE. Zibile. So you know what? How do you have to call them? I told him, how do you call you? He said, Bile. That XI stands for, they have all phonetics in their names. Correct or no? Madhumita.
Sir.
Amazing. See, amazing. Imagine you marry one Jingalala. Jingalala. Veds. Ilakya. Full whistling and tikka taka taka taka. Okay, let's go to the next point. So this is a valid contract. Don't write Balfour versus Balfour if you see husband and wife. Understood? So this is Venkataswamy versus Ramaswamy. It is written, it is registered. They mention it, everything clearly. Read the answer quickly.
Yes, sir. Sir, I wanted to ask one thing.
What?
Can you please switch on your video, sir?
Please and all.
Please, sir.
Please. You are saying with so much
many
love
people
and
are
affection.
requesting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll
It's a
put it
long
on.
time we didn't see you, sir.
Okay. It's on now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good. It's focused correctly?
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Yes, sir. No problem, sir.
You're happy. Okay. For your sake, Ilakya. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who's asking to see my video? Simply and all you'll tell without any.
No,
Nobody
sir.
asked
Really, they were
also.
asking, sir.
Chumma and all for namesake. Who Chandana, you asked?
No, sir.
No, say Chandu didn't ask means why?
Guys were asking, sir.
Guys,
Yes, sir.
that all happened after you read Mr. Lily and Mr. Ramesh. All those problems have started now. That's right. So
Yes.
please, guys. Right, read.
Yes, sir. Parties must intend to create legal obligations. There must be an intention on the part of the parties to create legal relationship between them. Social or domestic type of agreements are not enforceable in court of law, and hence they do not result into contracts. In the given question, Mr. Ramesh promised to pay 50,000 to his wife.
Oh, wrong answer they given. No? Okay.
To his wife so that she can spend the same on her birthday. However, subsequently, Mr. Ramesh failed to fulfill the promise for which Mrs. Lilly wants to file a suit against Mr. Ramesh. Here, in the given circumstance, wife will not be able to recover the amount.
Full wrong answer. See, how
Social
they're giving
agreement.
wrong answer. See, it is written, no? She made him write it and it was registered, right? Which revision? From where you all got this material? Chatte, they gave wrong answer. It's written, no? It's registered, it's written, right? Just read the case.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Registered agreement.
And then it was registered also.
And
So
registered
this
under
answer is absolutely wrong.
Registered.
Put a cross over there and put this is section 25, no consideration, exception to the no consideration, no Contract. This is not Balfour versus Balfour. This is Venkataswamy versus Ramaswamy. So answer is wrong. Put
Sir,
answer wrong.
what was the agreement all about? That whether
He
that
will
fellow-
give her for which one?
the Mr. Ramesh promised to pay 50,000 to his wife, Mrs. Lily.
Yeah.
So the agreement had whether that he had to pay 50,000 or whether he loved her or something like that, sir. Because in the second line, it's like Mrs. Lily insisted husband to make a written agreement.
Written agreement. Yeah.
If he really loved her.
Yeah, if he really. So this is natural love and affection. No? If he really loved her, that's why he wrote. No. If he really loved her, that's why he wrote. No, and gave it to her.
Okay.
So here there was an agreement between the husband and the wife, where the husband, out of love and affection, if he didn't love her, he wouldn't have written and given it to her, right? Because she insisted that she should love her only, then he should write it, right? So he really loved her. He wrote it down and she got it registered. What she got it?
Registered.
So this is a valid agreement. What it is? It is an exception to the rule, no consideration.
No contract.
No.
Go to the natural law. She's telling section 25. Are you sure it's section 25?
Yes, sir.
Yes, section 20.
Natural love and affection.
Yes, sir.
Okay, done. So this answer is wrong. Understand? Good you're doing these papers. At least some answers we're finding out which are not correct. Any of y'all have doubts for some answers which are not correct, you'll please let me know. Okay?
Okay.
Mm.
A shopkeeper.
Yeah, okay. This is the next case. And remember, again, always follow the facts, provisions, analysis, conclusion. Yeah, go ahead.
A shopkeeper displayed a pair of dress in the showroom, and a price tag of 2,000 was attached to the dress. Miss Lovely looked to the tag and rushed to the cash counter. Then she asked the shopkeeper to receive the payment and pack up the dress. The shopkeeper refused to hand over the dress to Miss Lovely in consideration of the price stated in the price tag attached to the Miss Lovely. Seeks your advice whether she can sue the shopkeeper for the above case under this section under the Indian Contract Act 1872.
Remember, I told you there's a difference between an offer and an invitation to offer.
Yes,
We had
sir.
done the difference.
Yes,
And we had done a case also here. Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain versus Boots Commission. I told you one person had an oil, he had scratching problem and all, remember? And then he went to the counter and he told, I want this oil. And the pharmacy said, no, we have kept it for somebody else. So remember, provisions, the facts of the cases, there's a goods which are displayed on the showroom and the buyer picks up the dress and gives it to the shopkeeper asking whether he can buy it or not. The provisions of the act is that this is similar to the case of Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain, and there is a difference between offer and invitation to offer. And then the analysis is that mere display of goods is not an offer. It is only an invitation to the offer. When the customer gives the goods on the counter to the cashier, he is making an offer to the cashier whether to buy the goods or it is now up to the shopkeeper whether to accept the offer or reject it. So Miss Lovely will not be able to get the case in her favor because display of goods is mere invitation to offer and it is not an offer. That will have the right conclusion. You can read the answer. Understand?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You all understood this? And remember the case law, Pharmaceutical Society of Great, and these case laws are there in a textbook also. At the back of the book or during the case law, they mention some cases, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So I'm not doing cases which are, I gave you some extra cases, but I also gave you cases which were there in your textbook also, right?
Yes.
Continue, read.
Explain the modes of revocation of an offer as per Indian Contract Act, 5 marks, November 2018 question paper. Modes of revocation of offer.
Okay, that mode of revocation. You all know, no? There are different 7, 8 modes of revocation, right? Offer by lapse of time, by express time. We have done this. This is theoretical question, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, and all of y'all, don't just skim the book, okay? Now you'll have time. When is your exam now? December?
16th.
You still have time, no? You have 1 month, no? So just don't do upper studying. Just skim the book and read it. That skimming of the book and just reading it on top, you should do it at the end. Now is the chance you have every opportunity to read the book in detail. Pay complete attention to the whatever you're reading in the textbook and make notes of it or whatever. Dedicate some half an hour, 45 minutes for each subject or whatever. Even if you do 45 minutes or 1 hour of law every day, you'll be through. I don't know what other work you'll have, right? You'll have only 1 month, right? Most of you are not going to college also, right? No? Dedicatedly, you sit and make notes and read it in detail. Then during the exam time, it's easy for you. Now itself, if you say you just read it, oh, I know everything, then nothing happens, right? Don't get confident. Okay, just read it in detail. See, now you're understanding, no, what sort of questions they'll give you in the exam, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Silaki.
Yes, sir. Define offer. Explain the essentials of a valid offer. How an offer is different from an invitation to offer.
See, this is also very easy question. These questions attempt. In case the case laws you are not getting right, it's okay. Attempt all these questions because these are just purely theoretical questions which you can just see. Previously, they asked essentials of valid acceptance. Here, they've asked essentials of valid offer. Sometimes they'll ask you essentials of consideration. Correct or no? No. Yeah.
A sends an offer to B to sell his second car for rupees 1,40,000 with the condition that if B does not reply within a week, he, A, shall treat the offer as accepted. If A correct in his proposition, what shall be the position if B communicates his acceptance after 1 week?
No, read that last line again.
Is A correct in his proposition?
Is A correct? No. Remember, we did then an offer must not contain a term, the non-compliance of which leads to acceptance. And I did a case law also. Mere silence is not acceptance. Feldhaus versus Bindley. That fellow, he went to buy a horse. Remember? From his nephew, and that nephew sold it off to somebody else. This is similar to the case of Feldhaus versus Bindley. Remember the case? So there were two things. One, in the essentials of a valid offer, there's one important point which says an offer must not contain a term, the non-compliance of which leads to exception. If you don't accept within 7 days, it will be accepted. That cannot be a case. And also, I told you when we were doing acceptance, one of the important parts was mere silence is not
Acceptance.
Acceptance. So this is not that done. Okay, what is the next line which you read, the second part?
What shall be the position if B communicates his acceptance after 1 week?
It's okay. It is acceptance. Correct or no? No problem. Read the answer for this.
Acceptance to an offer cannot be implied merely from the silence of the offeree, even if it is expressly stated in the offer itself, unless the offeree has by his previous conduct indicated that his silence amount to acceptance, it cannot be taken as valid acceptance. So, in the given problem, if B remains silent, it does not amount to acceptance. The acceptance must be made within the time limit prescribed by the offer. The acceptance of an offer after the time prescribed by the offerer has elapsed will not avail to turn off.
But here he is not said you have to accept it. He says if you don't reply within 1 week, it is considered as acceptance.
Yes, sir. So the acceptance of an offer after the time prescribed by the offerer has elapsed will not avail to turn the offer into a contract.
But here the offerer has not told that if you don't reply within 1 week, I'll cancel the offer, right? He's told if you don't reply within 1 week, I'll consider it as
he's accepted the offer.
You all wrong answer. Stupid people, I swear. Oh God. So in this case, let me put it in the other. If the person would have said, if you don't accept my offer within 1 week, I'll consider it as declined. That is okay. Even this Big Bazaar will have a sale, offer only for 3 days, or Amazon will have for 3 days, 4 days, freedom sale and all. That is okay. If you don't accept the offer within that 4 days, the offer is cancelled. But here it was not that if you don't accept it within 1 week, we'll cancel the offer. Here it was, if you don't write within 7 days, I'll consider the offer as accepted. What I'll consider the offer as?
Accepted.
So here, even if the acceptance is made after the prescribed period, it will be a valid acceptance because acceptance must be made within a reasonable period of
time.
And 8 to 10 days is a reasonable period of
Time.
Understood or no?
Yes, sir.
God, put a cross over here. Again, wrong answer.
Sir, this is caps material, sir.
This is not CAPS material. This is institute material. Revision test papers are available on the institute. Institute material, right? Or where? Which material is this, man? Chandana.
Sir,
Caps.
See, no.
Sir, it
the
is sent.
It is.
Sir, caps material only, sir. It is sent by caps number.
It is sent by CAPS number heroine.
In group only they sent, sir.
It is CAPS
Sir,
material.
R2C material.
I'll tell you one thing. These revision test papers are released by the institute. They give you RTPs, revision test papers, on the website of the.
Yes, sir. ICI website.
So that what we did is, why you're considering CAPS material is, all the revision test papers we took from the previous year, which was there on the website. Okay. And then we grouped it into chapter wise. What we grouped it into?
Chapter wise.
So all contract act we put under one head. All because revision test papers will be in any order, right? The first question will be offer, second question will be Companies Act, correct or no? Understand? So CAPS has not written the material. CAPS has compiled the material. What they have? Understood what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes, sir.
So we downloaded it from the institute website and we arranged the material as per chapter wise.
Chapter wise.
That's all. We have not done anything else. It is not prepared by CAPS. Who will prepare the material in CAPS? Law teachers only, me and Mehul. Both of us don't have time. Correct or no? Got it? So this is the institute material. So some of the institute answers are also wrong. Got it or no? What I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We got it.
This is a compiled material. So we took each of the revision test papers. I told those students, those people in CAPS office, what you do is, because I am teaching Contract Act and may also say teaching Companies Act, I can't keep, I'll do one question, then you'll read next question. No, sir, this is not in your syllabus. Then third question, I told, okay, that will become a lot of confusion. So put all the Contract Act material in one heading, all the other material in one. Understood? Got it? If I was teaching you the full law, I would have done it, the whole paper like that only, right or no? Got it?
Yes.
Okay, go to the next one.
Yes. Explain the type of contracts in the following agreements under in the Indian Contract Act 1872. A coolie in uniform picks up the luggage of A to be carried out of the railway station without being asked by A, and A allows him to do so.
This is implied contract. Remember, we are done?
Yes,
sir. Okay, so just implied contract. Next one.
Yes. Obligation of finder of lost goods to return them to the owner.
Quasi contract. Remember,
Quasi
finder
contracts.
of lost goods under quasi
Contract.
67, 68, 69. Remember, we done the sections, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
A contract with B, owner of the factory, for the supply of 10 tons of sugar, but before supply is effected, the fire caught in the factory and everything was destroyed.
What? Just read this again.
A contract with B, owner of the factory, for the supply of 10 tons of sugar, but before the supply is effected, the fire caught in the factory and everything was destroyed.
This is a void contract. Huh?
Contract.
See the
Supervening,
answer. Huh?
Yes. So
supervening impossibility.
It becomes void, no? Before the
yes, sir.
destruction of subject matter. The contract becomes null and void. Yeah.
Define the term acceptance. Discuss the legal provisions relating to communication of acceptance.
Remember, there they are essentials of valid acceptance. Here they are communication of acceptance. Remember, see the difference. So don't just when you see, oh, term acceptance, you get excited and write essential rules. Read the question at least 2 times. Communication of acceptance, when it should be made. Remember, we did that letter case and all. It should be sent, it should be communicated unless the offer either it can be revoked at any point of time. We have done communication of offer and acceptance, right? Section 4, right?
Yes.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Acceptance must be communicated within a reasonable period of time. It must be in the prescribed mode. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Ilake, you want to read it out?
Yes, sir. I'll
Read it off so that they get essentials of valid acceptance is different. Communication of acceptance is
different.
different.
According to section 2B, the term acceptance is defined as follows.
So
When
this is how you start the answer always. Give the definition of acceptance, and this is the way in which you write the answer. This is all institute only has prepared the answers. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Hmm.
When the
Right.
person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto, the proposal is said to be accepted. A proposal, when accepted, becomes a promise. An acceptance, in order to be valid, must be absolute, unqualified, accepted according to the mode, if any, prescribed within the reasonable time, and communicated to offerer. Acceptance can also be made by way of conduct. The legal provisions relating to communication of acceptance are contained in section 4. The communication of an acceptance is complete as against the proposer when it is put in a course of transmission to him so as to be out of power of the acceptor.
So once he sends the mail, it is out of the acceptance. So acceptance is completed. That means you cannot revoke an offer after that. Right? Remember I told you? Yeah. Then?
As against the acceptor when it comes to the knowledge of the proposer.
When it comes to the knowledge. So as for the proposer, when it's out of the hand of the acceptance, as for the acceptor, when it is comes to the notice of the, remember the two things, always memorize this, mug it up. Okay.
Section 3 of the Art prescribes in general terms two modes of communication, namely by any act or by omission intending thereby communicate to the other or which has the effect of communicating it to the other.
Okay.
The first method would include any conduct and words, whether written or oral.
That is expressed or implied. Omission means you don't do anything, and then it is considered as acceptance. Read on.
Written words would include letters, telegrams, advertisements, etc. Oral words would include telephone messages. Any conduct would include positive acts or signs so that the other person understands what the person acting or making signs mean to say or convey. Omission would exclude silence but include such conduct or forbearance of one's part that the other person takes it as his willingness or assent. These are not the only modes of communication of the intention of the parties. There are other means as well. Example, if you as the owner deliver the goods to me as the buyer thereof at a certain price, this transaction will be understood by everyone as acceptance by act or conduct.
You sent a letter. Yeah, you sent a letter. I want 100 kgs of potatoes. I don't reply anything, but I come and deliver the 100 kgs of potatoes in your house. Even that will be considered as acceptance. This is all communication of acceptance. Why I'm making her read it out? Because this is a long time since we did it. So when we did it the first time, you might not have understood because it was the second or third class which we did it, right?
Yes.
Yes. Ilaka?
Consideration. November 2020. In light of provision of Indian Contract Act 1872, answer the following. Mr. S and Mr. R made contract wherein Mr. S agreed to deliver paper cup manufactured machine to Mr. R and to receive payment on delivery. On the delivery date, Mr. R didn't pay the agreed price. Decide whether Mr. S is bound to fulfill his promise at the time of delivery.
Does he have to deliver the goods if he's not received the payment? Actually, this should come under Sale of Goods Act, rights of an unpaid seller. Remember, a right of lien? Have you, yes or no? Have they mentioned their Indian Contract Act?
No. Yes, they've mentioned, sir. In the starting, they've mentioned that in the light of provisions of the Indian Contract Act.
Then Indian Contract Act, if actually it's Sale of Goods Act, you can also mention Indian Contract Act. If one person, if there are reciprocal promises, and if you don't receive if one person does not render his promise, the other person also need not deliver his goods. Read the answer for this.
Yes, sir.
If they've written Indian Contract Act, write Indian Contract. If they have not mentioned anything, you can use any of the acts. Indian Contract Act as well as Sale of Goods Act. So this is also a case of Sale of Goods Act, rights of an unpaid seller. If you don't get the money, you can exercise right of lien. Remember I done with you all?
Yes.
Yes or no? But since they mentioned clearly Indian Contract Act, you mention Indian Contract Act.
So can't it be unilateral one?
Not unilateral.
So unilateral mistake.
Where is the mistake over here?
So because he refuses to pay the amount.
So this is not a mistake. What is a mistake? Mistake is like you're confused. I bought a painting. I thought it is MF Hussain painting, but actually it is some other painting. Here there's no mistake. I agreed to buy the machine. He agreed to pay the amount. So where is there a mistake?
Okay, sir.
There is no mistake. Correct. You made a mistake by asking the question. Okay, whatever.
As per Section 51 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, when a contract consists of reciprocal promises to be
This is
simultaneously
reciprocal promises. Section 51. Remember again.
performed, no promiser needs to perform his promise unless the promisee is ready and willing to perform his reciprocal promise. Such promises constitute concurrent conditions, and the performance of one of the promise is conditional on the performance of the other.
Another promise.
If one of the promises is not performed, the other two need not be performed.
Because they mention Indian contract, and this is reciprocal promises. Got it or no? No. Is it getting dark, Ilakya? Can you see my face still?
Sir, it's dark, sir.
It's dark. Okay. What I'll do is I'll just close the doors and I'll put the light and I'll come. Just hold on one. Okay, Lakya? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
So we'll continue from that point.
Yes.
So since they mentioned Indian Contract Act, we had to mention reciprocal promises. Otherwise, we had to.
Okay, sir. Mr. Y given loan to Mr. G of Indian rupees 30 crore. Mr.
30
G.
crores.
Yes, sir.
I want to meet that Mr. Y.
30 lakhs.
30 lakhs, sir.
Something in all this. Ilakya and all, only in crores she thinks. Her mother's dental
30
surgery is 30,000. What, Ilakya? What are you, man? Your father is one big this thing, huh?
No.
Tell no. I want to adopt. Tell your dad to adopt me. I'll become your brother. We'll share the property. We'll share.
Yes, sir.
Meeting your dad. I'll take good care of you as my sister. Come.
Sure, sir.
Tell.
30 lakhs.
Uh-huh.
Mr. G defaulted the loan on due date and debt became time barred. After the time barred debt, Mr. G agreed to settle the full amount to Mr. Y, whether acceptance of time barred debt contract is enforceable in law.
It is, right? Remember, this is an exception to the no consideration, no contract.
Okay.
Remember? One was natural love and affection. Another one is time barred. You know what's a time barred debt? First of all, you have to write section 25. What is a time barred debt? A debt for which the creditor has not enforced the payment for a period of 3 years after the due date of the payment of loan is called as a time barred debt. However, if the debtor agrees to repay a time barred debt, even though there is no consideration, it will be a valid contract. What? It will be a valid
Contract.
This is an exception to the rule, no consideration, no
Contract.
contract. Right?
Yes, sir.
A and B entered into a contract. Okay, I didn't read the answer, sir. Promised to pay time bar debts. Section 25, subclause 3, where there is an agreement.
Okay, this section 25, no consideration, no contract. 25 subsection 1 is natural love and affection. Section 25 subsection 2 is that voluntary gratuitous act. 25 subsection 3 is time barred. 25 subsection 4 is gift. 25 subsection 5 is agency. And 25 subsection 6 is charity. I hope you'll remember. These are all sections. There were 6 agreements for no consideration, no exceptions. The role of no. Please read through that. No consideration, no contract. In that chapter, that consideration, there are only 2 things which are important. In 3 things: essentials of a valid consideration. When can a stranger to a consideration sue? Remember, I told you the difference between stranger to contract and stranger to consideration. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And last one is no consideration, no contract. Read.
Yes, sir.
Even if you write section 25 is more than enough. If you don't remember the subsection also, okay. Go ahead.
Promised to pay section 25 subclause 3, where there is an agreement made.
Where this clause and all you got from this?
Subsection 3.
You got from that Mehul, sir. That's what happens. Jingalalahu. And Mehul, sir. I'll catch him and I'll slap him once. But everything you'll be saying clause. That Mehul is one Santa Claus. Clause is only for definitions.
Okay, sir.
That also in whatever. Correct.
Subsection.
Guys, where's the Josh? He'll tell like that, no? Yes. Like that only, no?
No, sir. Starting only, he'll start with good morning. Full energy, sir.
Good morning. Like that, huh?
He'll be like, good morning, students. I hope you're active, loving heart, sir. Just like that.
Actually, I wanted to send that. We'll record that and we'll send it to that Radio City. You can become a good RJ morning. They'll say, no, good morning, Bangalore. Correct?
Correct, sir.
I am Mehul. You're LJ, law jockey, love jockey, whatever. See what all teachers you have, no? In caps. And I'm sending Divyashri's voice for English training. You should understand demand and supply. Correct? No. What, Varshini?
Yes, sir.
Where you want to put? Where Mayol's voice will suit? Radio City?
News channel also, sir. Weather forecast.
Weather forecast. Good
He's
morning,
talking about that
students.
also, sir.
Today, even though it's raining, it's a great day. Water is all over my body. I'm sweating. Okay, we'll start. This Chuma and all. And God, all this is getting recorded. Full danger for me now. Full danger. Okay.
Yes. Whether there is an agreement made in writing and signed by the debtor or by his agent to pay wholly or in part-time bar debt, the agreement is valid and binding even though there is no consideration. In the given case, the loan given by Mr. Y to Mr. G has become time-barred. Thereafter, Mr. G agreed to make payment in full amount to Mr. Y.
A valid agreement. Leave this. Chumma and all, we're wasting time. You know it's a valid agreement. Remember section 25, subsection 3. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yes, sir. Next, Chandana, can you scroll?
No, A and B entered into a contract. That is
A and B.
sub-question 3.
Who's this A? Yeah, boys. Come on, Chandana. Read.
Yes, sir.
Simply and all, you're playing the fool. Chandana, don't feel bad and all.
No, sir,
After
nothing.
many days, you'll not commit, no. So at least you'll laugh little, at least you'll feel better.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, only study and all, your head is becoming like one. Whatever.
Nothing is entering, sir.
Nothing is entering. It's all going exit only. Your head has become exhaust pipe. Exhaust. Okay, read.
A and B entered into a contract to supply unique item, alternate of which is not available in the market. A refused to supply the agreed unique item to B, what directions could be given by the court to breach of such contract?
Remember now remedies for breach of contract. I want you to remember. What were the remedies for breach of contract? One was damages, correct or no? And one was suit for specific performance. If you remember, if the items are unique and damages are not an adequate compensation, the court can adopt suit for specific. Remember, there was the injunction, suit for specific performance, damages. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You all remember the chapter? Again, I forgot the section. Which section is this here? See? Suit for specific performance. This is remedies of. So here, since the items are unique, I told you any art collection, any Tipu Sultan sword, anything, the court can give a suit for specific performance because you will not get these items. If it's potatoes, tomatoes, mangoes, you can get it outside in the market, but you cannot get unique items. Please go through breach of contract. What breach of contract? Read the answer.
Yes, sir. Where there is a breach of contract for supply of unique item, mere monetary damages may not be an adequate remedy for the other party. In such a case, the court may give order for specific performance. And direct the party in breach to carry out this performance.
Okay.
According to the terms of contract.
Okay. I don't remember the section and they have not written the section. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Next one.
Next one, Chandana.
Chandana, why you are not scrolling, man? What's your problem?
Sir, I'm scrolling.
You're rolling or you're scrolling? ROFL, rolling on the floor laughing. What is that? ROTFL and all, no? They'll do. Okay, fast.
State the exceptions to the rule. An agreement without consideration is void.
Okay, so except this is the exception. Remember, I just now told you section 25, natural love and affection, voluntary gratuitous act. I just now told you, gift, agency,
sir.
Yeah, charity. Remember,
no
we had done
consideration, no contract.
No consideration. So same thing they've asked another way. Go next question. This is a theoretical question. You all will be able to answer.
No consideration, no contract, comment.
Okay. Please spend 45 minutes to 1 hour every day for law. See, ticking papers are easy, I think. No, BCK is so easy for you all. Which other paper is easy? That economics and BCK is one. Economics is a little tougher, but that's only ticking, no? How's math, stats, and logical reasoning? You'll have to do a lot of working in that, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But logical reasoning is 30 marks, no? How much is it?
20 marks.
20 marks.
Statistics is easy, no? How many marks is that?
40.
40.
60. Say 60 over there. Only maths is a little... maths is a little tougher. That's easy. Easiest, which subject? Business law. Correct. And business correspondence, no? You'll have 40 marks for that also, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Next.
Next, Mr. Mohanlal sold 10 acres of his agricultural land to Mr. Mohanlal sold 10 acres of his agricultural land to Mr. Mohanlal on 25th September 2000.
He sold to himself.
Yes, sir. That's what is given here.
That's why all printing mistake this is. Might be Mr. Sohanlal.
Maybe.
How will sell to himself?
There should be two parties. No?
Okay, read.
The property papers mentioned a condition. So maybe it's Sohanlal. The property papers mentioned a condition amongst the other details that whoever purchased the land is free to use 9 acres as per his choice, but the remaining 1 acre has to be allowed to be used by Mr. Chotu. What is it?
Chotu?
Not Chotu. CHOTEAU, sir.
CHO?
TEAU.
Whatever. Chotai. Plateau, no? PLATEAU, right? This is
Chotelal something, sir.
Chotayu.
Chotayu. This is the brother of the Jatayu. I think. Whatever. Very nice names they have. Okay.
Son of the seller for carrying out farming or other activity of his choice. On 12th October 2018, Mr. Mohanlal died, leaving behind a son and life.
Oh, sure. Leaving behind his son and wife. I thought he left behind some money.
Life.
He left his son and life
son
also.
And life.
Leaving behind his son who was his life. So he still didn't die. He went above, but his life is down only. Some stupid thing they have written.
On 15th.
Only Madhumita can understand all this.
Sir.
What is this case? Yeah, Madhumita, can you understand? Mr. Mohanlal sold one land to himself, and then he left behind his wife and life. His ghost is here or something.
Sir, it's
How can you
Sohanlal. Sohanlal, sir.
Okay, Sohanlal. Okay. And the Sohanlal had a son. No, Mr. Mohanlal had it. Okay, I'll tell you. Read. This is Chotu and all is also there.
On 15th October 2018, purchasers started construction of an auditorium on the whole 10 acres of land and denied any land to the son. Now, Mr. Chotu or whatever his name wants to file a case against the purchaser and get a suitable redress, discuss the above in light of provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, decide upon Mr. Chotu's plan of action.
I'll tell you one thing. See, now this is a case of stranger to the contract. When is the person a stranger to the consideration and stranger to contract? When does the person become a stranger to a contract and not a stranger to the consideration? Remember, we had done certain rules. Yes or no?
Sir.
Yes or no?
Sir. Covenant
That is
running
family
with the land.
settlement agreements, correct or no? This is
Yes,
covenant running with the land. Very good. See, Madhumita knew. What is covenant running? So suppose you're selling a land to somebody and you have some conditions with that land. Now, even though you're not a part of the consideration, they're not a part of the contract, you will still be a part of the consideration and you can enforce the contract. See, what happened in this case was there was a man, okay? He sold a land to another person and he told that I'm selling you 10 acres, but that 1 acre of land which is there has to be utilized by my son for agriculture. This fellow ignored that condition and he started constructing auditorium on the full 10 acres. But in the original agreement, it was mentioned that 9 acres can be used by you. The 10th acre has to be used by my son. Now the son is filing a case. Now that fellow will say you are not a part of the contract because your father entered into a contract with me. But this person, the son, is not a stranger to the contract. He's a stranger to the consideration. What is a stranger to the consideration? This is covenants running with the land. What is covenants? Rules which are framed by the original buyer and seller. Then subsequently other people also have to
Abide by it.
Abide by that. So here this is an exception to the rule of stranger to the consideration. Remember, stranger to the consideration? So this is covenant running with the land. This is the same case they've given you as an example in your textbook. What is an example in your
textbook?
If you are reading your textbook clearly, you will know. when I was discussing the entire contract with you all, sometimes that's why I made Ilakya read out all the examples. In the offline classes also, I skipped a few examples. Most of the examples I did. But when you all are reading it, read each and every example which is given in your study material. Understand? This is covenant running with the land. You want to read the answer, just two lines very briefly, then go to the next one.
Yes, sir. Problem as asked in the question and based on the provisions of the Indian Contract Act 1872 as contained in section 2D and on the principal privity of consideration. Consideration is one of the essential elements to make a contract valid, and it can flow from the promise or any other person. In the view of the clear language used in definition of consideration in section 2D, it is not necessary that consideration should be furnished by the promise only. A promise is enforceable if there is some consideration for it in it.
That's all.
No, sir, it's there. It's quite immaterial whether it moves from the
This is all copy paste. So you just have to mention the facts of the case, provisions of the law, analysis of the case, and conclusion. You'll have to write covenant running with the land. Okay, leave it. So Mr. Chotu can get the land. Leave it. Others, we're wasting time. Go to the next one.
What do you understand by the term consideration? Are there any circumstances under which the contract, under the provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, without consideration is valid? Explain.
That we've done, no? Section 25, just now, natural love and affection, voluntary gratuitous act. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next.
Only a person who is party to a contract can sue on it. Explain this statement and describe its exceptions, if any.
What is this? Read this.
Only a person who is party to a contract.
No, this is stranger to the contract. So we did know under what circumstances a stranger to a consideration contract becomes stranger to consideration, right? So we've done no family settlement agreements, marriage, correct or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? Trustee, beneficiary.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledgement of estoppel.
Estoppel. Yeah. Next.
Hey,
is my video on or off, man? Just see like
It's on, sir.
Okay, it's on, no? Right, go ahead.
To form a valid contract, consideration must be adequate. Comment.
Okay, this is, remember, consideration need not be adequate.
Adequate.
The consideration, the court will decide only if there is consideration, but whether it should be adequate is not necessary. That depends on both the parties. So both the parties can agree. You can decide to sell your watch, which is worth 1,000 rupees for 200 rupees. The court will not decide whether the value of the watch is 1,000 or 200 or 100, right? As long as there's considered. However, if the person proves that the contract was, the consideration was not adequate because of coercion or due to fraud or due to any other
Undue influence.
Misrepresentation or through undue influence, then consideration, if it is not valid, can be sued in the court of law. But otherwise, consideration need not be
Adequate.
Other essential elements of a valid contract. November 2020, define misrepresentation and fraud. Explain the difference between fraud and misrepresentation.
This you all can go through. I told you, every year they'll ask you one difference. Either difference between sale and agreement to sale, fraud and misrepresentation, expressed and implied contract. In one of those 5 questions, 6 questions, they will generally ask differences between 2 things.
Explain with the reasons that the given statement is correct or incorrect. Minor is liable to pay for the necessary supplied to him.
Minor has to pay for necessities of life. Remember, we have to first define who's a minor. Then we have to define what is the necessities of life. They're not defined in the Indian Contract Act, but necessities of life, which will provide a reasonable standard of living to the person who's entering into the contract. And we did 2 cases. Remember that, what was that? Roberts versus Gray, where he learned to learn professional billiards. So even education for professional is a necessity of life. And this necessities of life comes under quasi contracts. I think so, section 69. 69 or what, Madhumita?
Section 68, sir.
68? 68. Okay, I forgot. Section 68. Okay, I got confused within one section. Section 68, necessities of life. So if you are supplying necessities of life to a minor, it can be enforceable in the court of law. Roberts versus Gray. And I did one more case with you, Nash versus Inman, where this fellow bought 11 fancy waistcoats. Remember? And it was not considered a necessity of life because 11 coats are not required for
Normal living.
Yeah. So you write both the cases, explain this. Okay, necessities of life has been done, and go through both quasi contract as well as the capacity to contract. Go next.
Yes, sir. Define fraud, whether mere silence will amount to fraud as per Indian Contract Act.
So you'll have to define fraud. 17, which is section? Fraud is section 18. 17. 17. Why am I getting mixed up today? 17 and 18 is misrepresentation. Okay, I got confused. Okay.
Explain the concept.
Okay, so you have to difference that mere silence is not fraud. Remember, I did that case Ward versus Hobbs where he sold those pigs.
Yes, sir.
Remember the case law, Ward versus Hobbs, right?
Explain the concept of misrepresentation in matters of contract.
Yeah, so misrepresentation is section 18. You know how you can represent miss when a girl becomes a miss to misses, it's 18. No, you'll become a major to minor, right? What? First you'll write MISS, then from 18 you'll write MS, right?
Yes.
So misrepresentation. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Next.
Sona induced Suraj to buy his motorcycle, saying that it was in a very good condition. After taking the motorcycle, Suraj complained that there were many defects in the motorcycle. Sona proposed to get it repaired and promised to pay 40% of cost of repairs. After a few days, the motorcycle did not work at all. Now Suraj wants to resign the contract beside giving reasons.
Yeah, he can rescind the contract because there's a case of misrepresentation of fraud. Correct or no?
Yes,
where he
sir.
made him believe that it was a good.
In a good condition.
Yeah. If he knows it was in a good condition, he thought it was in a good condition, then it is misrepresentation. But if he himself knew it was in a bad condition, it amounts to fraud. And any contract of fraud or misrepresentation is voidable at the option of the promisee. But I am just giving you the gist. You have to write it in that format: facts of the case, provisions, analysis, conclusion. And also see the marks. If it's just 2 marks or something, you can write it off in 2-3 lines. But if it's 4 marks or something, always write this format: facts, provisions, analysis, and
conclusion.
Because sometimes they'll give a very 1 line and then they'll ask you for 2 marks. Remember, out of the 12 marks, that full question, very rarely they give you questions for 7-5. They'll generally give you 4-4-4 or 4-3-3-2, like that they give you. ABCD. Okay. And don't expect all the questions to be of Contract Act in one question. That also is one thing which you'll generally make mistakes. Now let's say question 3. The first question will be of Contract Act, the second will be of Sale of Goods Act, the third will be of Companies Act, and the fourth will be of Partnership. So it will all be mixed up. It's not that each question will be only related to one
chapter.
Yeah, understood. They want you to know all the chapters. Otherwise, then people will study only Indian Contract and Sale of Goods Act. Out of 5 questions, you can attempt 3 of them, finished. 1 compulsory question, 4. 1, even if you don't know, it's okay. But they will mix up the questions, or they will mix up the questions. Okay. So don't expect every question, the sub questions and one question to relate to one chapter. They will relate to some multiple. One thing is guaranteed: question 2, one part will be limited liability for 5 marks. That's all. That will be the only limited liability partnership question in the whole paper. Otherwise, everything keeps changing. What everything keeps changing. Go ahead.
P sells by auction to Q a horse which P knows to be unsound. The horse appears to be sound, but P knows about the unsoundness of the horse. Is the contract valid in the following circumstances? According to Section 17 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, mere silence as to facts likely to affect the willingness of a person to enter into a contract is not fraud, unless circumstances of the case are such that regard being had to them. It is the duty of the person keeping silence to speak, or
these are the exceptions where silence is fraud. Okay. She's reading out the exceptions to the rule where silence is actually fraud.
It is the duty of the person keeping silence to speak, or unless his silence is in itself equivalent to speech. Hence, in the instant case, if P says nothing about the unsoundness of the horse to Q, this contract is valid, since as per section 17, mere silence as to the facts likely to affect the willingness of a person to enter into a contract is not fraud. Here, it is not the duty of the seller to disclose defects. If P says nothing
So
about
this is the case of Ward versus Hobbs, right? Remember, he sold pigs which had swine flu, but it is not his duty to declare whether it, if the buyer asks and then he tells it is not, then it amounts to
fraud.
Okay, next one.
If P says nothing about it to Q, who is P's daughter, who has just come of age.
This is your duty. This is uberima fide, utmost good faith. Remember, we did that. If there is a contract of utmost good faith, then silence amounts to fraud. What silence amounts to?
Fraud.
Fraud. How many people are there in class? Yeah, Ilakya?
Sir?
How many students in class? 94.
84.
Huh?
84.
Okay. When it started 94, they 10 ran off.
It started with 100 participants.
100, sir.
100 participants.
Okay.
Sir, maximum only 100 can be there in this meeting, sir.
Correct. But 16 left, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Continue. Good. This R2C is like this only. Why maximum 100 can be in this meeting?
No, so they've created it
it is designed like that only, sir, in this June.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
If P says nothing about it to Q.
Okay, leave that P, Q, yeah, forget that P.
Okay, sir.
Let's go. This question is done.
It's not fraud, but there are some circumstances where the silence is fraud.
Amount to fraud. So please read that part in the chapter. When does silence amount to fraud? That's what they're trying to ask you. So they might ask you for a separate question also. Let's go to the next one.
Discuss the essentials of undue influence as per Indian Contract Act.
Okay, so this you'll have to do. Section 16, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Section 16, undue influence. And remember, I had done 3 cases with y'all. One when there was real or apparent authority, Rani Annapurni Devi versus Swaminathan, where he charged 100% rate of interest, correct or no? Second, we did where there's a fiduciary relationship, that Manu Singh versus Umadat Pandey, the spiritual advisor took money from her, telling her that he will get her a place in heaven, correct or no, moksha? And the third we did was when a person is mentally disturbed or is physically in not a position to understand the contract, that is Sher Singh versus Preeti Singh. What Sher Singh versus?
Preeti Singh.
So we discussed all the essentials of a valid undue influence. When one person is in a position to dominate the will of another and he uses that position to get an unfair advantage, it is called as undue influence. Remember?
Undue influence.
Yeah, we had done this in detail with all the 3 cases, correct? And all contracts of undue influence are avoidable at the option of the
Other part.
Yeah. Next.
A student was induced by his teacher to sell his brand new car to the latter at less than the purchase price to secure more marks in the examination. Accordingly, the car was sold. However, the father of the student persuaded him to sue his teacher. State whether the student can sue his
Yes, he can definitely. This is a case of undue
influence,
where the teacher is unduly influential. Undue influence is also called moral coercion. Remember, so they ask you what is moral coercion. It means the same as undue influence. And they'll also ask you difference between coercion and undue influence sometimes. So please learn that. Like how they ask difference between fraud and misrepresentation, right?
Yeah. Explain the term coercion and what are the effects of coercion under the Indian Contract
Act. This also we've done. Coercion, remember? When a person does or threatens to do any act prohibited by the Indian Penal Code or detains the property or threatens to detain the property, it amounts to coercion, correct? And we had done many cases over there. Remember, we did that case of, what was that? The Chikkam Amiraju versus Sheshama, where a person threatened to commit suicide. Then we did one more case. What was that? That they took off that husband, they took off that body of her husband and they did not give it back to her unless she adopted somebody.
Rajlakhi Devi versus Alvar Shetty, is it?
What? It was not Rajlakhi Devi versus Alvar Shetty, some other name. What was this Alvar Shetty?
So that one.
Not Rajlakhi Devi.
Ranganayaki.
Ranganayaki Amma versus Alvar Shetty. Why you all are putting all Rajalakhi Devi? Rajalakhi Devi versus Bhutnath. That is natural love and affection. Correct or no? This Ranganayaki Amma, they took off her husband's body and they didn't give it to her until she adopted one child. So this was prohibited by the Indian Penal Code. And we also did one more case that where the detainee of Muttaya versus Muttukarupa.
Yes.
Remember where this person agent refused to give the books to his
Consign.
consignor until he releases. So all these you'll have to write each one and explain it. Okay. Next. Ranganayaki Amma versus Alvar Shetty.
Explain the circumstances in which the person is deemed to be in a position to dominate the will of the other person under the Indian Contract Act 1872.
No, so dominate the will, no, those three conditions. Real or apparent authority, correct, no? Fiduciary relationship, where a person is under physical or mental stress. I gave you all the three cases, right? Got it? Next.
Next is what is wagering contract? Describe agreement. Describe a transaction which resembles with wagering transactions but are not void.
What are wagering agreements? They are also called betting transactions, right?
Yes.
Where you enter into an agreement with another person and the sole determining factor of that agreement is an event which may or may not. I'll tell Lakshya, I'll give you 1,000 rupees if it rains tonight. She says it will not rain. I'll give you 1,000 rupees if it doesn't rain tonight. So both of us enter into a wagering agreement. And we did contracts resembling wagering agreement, lotteries, the chit fund, correct or no?
Yes.
It's there in the chapter. This is also all theory. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sham owned a motor car. He approached Mr. Vikas and offered to sell his motor car for rupees 3 lakh. Mr. Sham told Mr. Vikas that the motor car is running at the rate 30 kilometers per liter of petrol. Both the fuel meter and the speed meter of the car were working perfectly. Mr. Vikas agreed with the proposal of Mr. Sham and took delivery of the car by paying 3 lakhs to Mr. Sham. After 10 days, Mr. Vikas came back with the car and stated the claim made by Mr. Sham regarding fuel efficiency was not correct and therefore there was a cause of misrepresentation. Referring to the provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, decide and write whether Mr. Vikas can resign the contract in the above ground.
He can, no? If it's a case of misrepresentation, then it can,
Well,
as per the, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But
So
if they
the-
wouldn't have mentioned Indian Contract Act, you can also use conditions and warranties. Remember?
Yes, sir. So, but it is also voidable at the option of the buyer, no, sir?
Yeah. This is voidable at the option of the buyer. He can rescind. If he wants, he can continue. If he wants, he can cancel the contract. Okay. Again, remember facts, provisions, analysis, conclusion. Okay. Right. Go ahead.
Performance of a contract, Unit 4. July 2021. X, Y, and Z jointly borrowed 90,000 from L. Decide each of the following in the light of the Indian Contract 1872. Whether L can compel only Y to pay the entire loan of 90,000. Yes, L can compel only Y to pay.
Then but Y can recover the money from X and Z. Remember?
Yes, sir.
You can free one person from entering into the contract. You can't. You'll say why you have to pay, because remember the liability is joint and
They're
several.
separately liable.
So let's say X and Z are out of station, so he can recover the entire amount from Y. But if Y recover the entire amount from Y, Y can recover 30,000 from X and 30,000 from Z. Right?
Yes, sir.
Whether L can compel only the legal representatives of Y to pay the loan of 90,000 if X, Y, and Z died.
Yes, of course. You can compel their legal representatives. Correct or no?
Yes, sir.
If all of them die, then the legal representatives have to discharge the
Liability.
Okay.
liability.
Sir, or he can also realize from his left assets, no, sir.
He can also realize from?
The assets which he has pledged as a collateral.
Yeah. But they are asking legal representatives. Suppose they've borrowed, they're not sure that he's given a asset or anything, no?
Yes, sir.
As per Section 42, when two or more persons have made a joint promise, Then, unless a contrary intention appears by the contract, all such persons during their joint lives and after the death of any of them, his representative jointly with the survivor or survivors after the death of last survivor, the representatives of all jointly must fulfill the promise. In the instant,
Suppose that legal representative also dies.
Sir, then court will come into action.
No other legal representative. Now let's say X dies, his wife has to pay the loan, but his wife also died, then the son has to pay the loan. Till all the surviving legal representatives die, it will keep continuing. What it will keep? Understood what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So can't the
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, excused.
Sir, in that previous question, Mr. Shyam owned a motor car. In that, what is answer, sir? He can rescind or he cannot?
He can. If the mileage of the car is less than 30 kilometers per liter, he can rescind the.
Sir,
this
but
yeah.
answer is given, he cannot rescind the contract, sir.
Oh, again, wrong answer. Read the answer. I thought they would have written.
Sir, it is given that he can discover the truth by his ordinary diligence.
Read that again. Read. I didn't get that question. Just read it, Ilakya. We missed that point, I think so.
yes, sir.
We might have done a mistake. Then just good you took us to this point. Read the whole question again.
Okay, I'll read it, sir. Mr. Shyam owned a motor car. He approached Mr. Vikas and offered to sell his motor car for rupees 3 lakhs. Mr. Shyam told Mr. Vikas that the motor car is running at the rate of 30 kilometers per liter of petrol. Both the fuel meter and the speed meter of the car were working perfectly. Mr. Vikas agreed with the proposal of Mr. Shyam and took delivery of the car by paying 3 lakhs to Mr. Shyam. After 10 days, Mr. Vikas came back with the car and stated that claim made by Mr. Shyam regarding fuel efficiency was not correct and therefore there was a case of misrepresentation. Referring to the provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, decide and write whether Mr. Vikas can resign the contract in the above ground.
Now read the answer. Actually, what they're telling is a point. They've mentioned that the fuel meter is running properly, right? Okay, read.
As per the provisions of Section 19 of Indian Contract Act 1872, when consent to an agreement is caused by coercion, fraud, or misrepresentation, the agreement is contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so caused. A party to a contract whose consent was caused by fraud or misrepresentation may, if he thinks first fit, insist that the contract shall be performed and that shall be put in the position in which he would have been if the representation made have been true. Exception, if such consent was caused by misrepresentation or by silence fraudulent within the meaning of Section 17, the contract nevertheless is not voidable if the party whose consent was so caused had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. In the situation given in the question, both fuel meter and the speed meter of the cars were working perfectly. Mr. Vikas had the means of discovering the truth with the ordinary diligence. Therefore, the contract is not voidable. Hence, Mr. Vikas cannot resign the contract on the above ground.
Okay. We made a mistake. I didn't listen to that part that the fuel meter and the petrol meter were running properly. So, by ordinary diligence, he could make out the truth. Sorry. We went little. But if they have not mentioned about the fuel meter or petrol meter, then he can rescind the contract, correct? Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for pointing it out. Very good. What's your name?
Sir, Kartikeya.
Very good, Kartika. Good. Sometimes we'll be in a hurry, to complete, and we'll not take into consideration those things. Yeah. Next.
Whether Y and Z are released from their liability to L and X is released from his liability to Y and Z.
No, that we did. No, he can claim from the other two. The same point, no, that X, Y, and Z thingy, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Go ahead.
X, Y, and Z are partners in a firm. They jointly promised to pay 3 lakh to D. Y became insolvent and his private assets are sufficient to pay 1/5 of his share of debts.
Now, 1/5 of his share of debt. So, how much is his share of debt? 1,50,000, right?
Yes.
Who are the partners? Just read.
X, Y, and Z.
Okay. So, his share is 1 lakh, right?
Yes, sir.
And how much could you recover? 20,000, right?
Yes, sir.
So remaining 80,000 loss has to be borne by the remaining two partners, 40 and 40. So 1,40,000, 1,40,000. Read.
Y became insolvent and his private assets are sufficient to pay 1/5 of his share of debts. X is compelled to pay the whole sum amount to D. Examining the provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872, decide the extent to which X can recover the amount from Z.
So how much you can recover? 1,40,000, right or no?
Yes, sir.
Because 20,000 you recovered from Y. The remaining debt was 2,80,000. X paid the entire 2,80,000. So half of it he can recover from. Got it?
Yeah.
Sir, who this question?
Huh?
Who's getting insolvent here?
Y became insolvent.
Oh,
Y became insolvent and X had to pay the full amount of. But out of Y's estate, you could recover 20,000, no? 1/5 of his debt.
Yes.
1/5 of 1 lakh is 20,000. So X had to pay the remaining 2,80,000.
sir. So for each it will be 1,40,000.
That is for X and Z, it will be 1,40,000, 1,40,000. So X can recover from Z
40,000.
1,40,000.
Sure.
Fast, Ellie.
X and Mr. Y entered into a contract on 1st August 2018 by which Mr. X had to supply 50 tons of sugar to Mr. Y at a certain price strictly within a period of 10 days of the contract. Mr. Y also paid an amount of 50,000 towards advance as per the terms of the above contract. The mode of transportation available between their places is roadway only. Severe flood came on 2nd August 2018 and the only road connecting their places was damaged and could not be repaired within 15 days. Mr. X offered to supply sugar on 20th August 2018, for which Mr. Y did not agree. On 1st September 2018, Mr. claimed compensation of 10,000 from Mr. Y. For refusing other hand, Mr. Y claimed a refund of 50,000 which he had paid as advance in terms of contract. Analyze the above situation in terms of the provisions.
This is impossibility of performance. If there is floods and you cannot supply the sugar, whatever the contract becomes null and void. So whatever money advance Y has paid, he can recover it back. Read the answer.
Subsequent of supervening impossibility becomes
Supervening impossibility of contract. Remember, after you enter into a contract, if it becomes impossible to perform the contract becomes null and
void.
That is called supervening impossibility. Correct or no? And if there is supervening impossibility, the parties should be restored to the position as they were before they had entered into the contract. So since there were floods and he could not supply, the transport was not possible, correct or no? So why it became impossible for him to perform the contract? So whatever advance he is given, he can recover the money. Got it or no? Read.
Yes, sir.
என்ன அப்படின்னா அது வந்து இதாகல பிரிண்ட் அவுட் எடுக்கல இத
What they telling? Jingalala hua?
No, so Madhumita, she didn't made by mistake. She spoke.
Her mother is telling her. What is mother telling her? To take print out.
No, she's like, she didn't take the printout of the revision material.
And Madhumita, why you didn't take print out, man?
Sir, I had gone to college today, so I didn't have time to take a printout of this.
Then what you are doing? You are seeing on your phone.
Yes, sir. That is why by mistake my mic was on.
Okay, very good. How many pages is this print revision material?
135.
Huh?
135.
Oh. Okay, doesn't matter. Give it to your mother. She'll take and come.
Yes, sir. I'll go today. Like after the class, I'll go get a printout, sir.
Yeah. Both sides, yeah. Otherwise, it will become very costly. Go ahead. Read over time. Time is up. Just read this last thing and we'll continue. We'll have one more R2C class where we'll complete the remaining questions.
Oh, okay, sir.
Read.
Yes, sir. Subsequent to supervening impossibility becomes impossible after entering into contract when performance of promise becomes impossible or illegal by occurrence of an unexpected event or a change of circumstance beyond the contemplation of parties. The contract becomes void. Example.
So it became void. See what happened. X had asked Y to supply some. He told he'll supply some goods or something like that, and Y had paid him in advance, but he could not supply the goods because of the floods, right? So Y has cancelled the contract. So now he's asking back for the money. He can get back the money, right? Got it or no? That's what it means. Got it? All of y'all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anything you want to read? Keep reading quickly. How big is the answer?
So next, Chandana, she scrolled down. 1 second, sir.
Chandana.
Also, according to Section 65 of Indian Contract Act 1872, when an agreement is discovered to be void or when a contract becomes void, any person who has received any advantage under such agreement or contract is bound to restore it or to make compensation for it to the person for whom he received it. In the given question, after Mr. X and Mr. Y have entered into the contract to supply 50 tons of the sugar, the event of flood occurred which made it impossible to deliver the sugar within the stipulated time. Thus, the promise in question became void. Further, Mr. X has to pay back the amount of 50,000 that he received from Mr. Y as an advance for the supply of sugar within the stipulated time. Hence, the contention of Mr. Y is correct.
Correct. Understood or no?
Yes, sir.
Done. So
Yes,
we
sir.
will continue R2C. We'll have one more class in the middle. And at that time, we'll do the remaining questions. Like, so you'll understood how to write the answers. Please keep reading deeply and please understand the questions, and we will meet in the next R2C class. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
All the
sir.
best.
Thank you,
All the
sir.
best.
you,
All
sir.
the best.
Sir.
All the best. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.